Hello and welcome to Back to the Feature, the show we talk about movies past, present, and future. Today we are talking about the newest entry into the MCU, Black Panther. Black Panther is the 18th film in the MCU so far, after getting an introduction to Black Panther in Civil War, played by Chadwick Boseman. He really caught, I think, a lot of people's attention in that film, especially mine. I thought he was really cool in Civil War for the bits that we did get, and I really loved his resolution at the end of the movie with Zemo. I think it spoke a lot about this character and definitely got me interested going into Black Panther, and the idea, of course, to see what the rest of Wakanda, his country, and everything that that culture is about. I think it was a really exciting idea. So coming into this movie, I was definitely looking forward to Black Panther on the slate for this year.
Yes, Black Panther is it's cool to see a character that's just outright field. We get to bring this character in and bring him into the MCU and just show what he's all about. And they show off in this film. I think everything in this movie, the production design, the costumes, the art direction, just kind of everything that went into this. There's a lot of heart in it, and you can tell that they were really wanting to make a statement, and it shows on screen. This was a very fun movie to watch. And just throwing it out there early on in this review, I think it's one of Marvel's best.
Yeah, I'm not going to dance around it. I think it's one of my favorite Marvel movies so far. I know it's very early yet to say, and that's quite a statement. As we said, there's 18 of these films. But I think that there's some things in it that it does differently than other ones that I think it paints such a great picture of the character, the culture, and of course, I think for this one, the supporting characters are such a strength of this film. There's so many, I think, strong ones, from Danai Gurira as Okoye, the leader of his bodyguards, and Lupita Nyong'o, who I think this might be kind of my favorite thing with her a little bit. I think it's the most, especially personality-wise, she really gets to, in 12 Years a Slave, she doesn't quite get to have that, she doesn't get to have a lot of things in that movie if you've never seen it. But I think that that this one, it was really cool to see her in a more relaxed setting and having fun and getting to see that kind of side to her, because like I said, I really only know her from that and of course Star Wars, but of course Maz is kind of a different character and it's mocap and all that stuff. It's not quite the same as seeing the actress, where I kind of felt I know I've seen her in so many other things at this point, but I feel very unfamiliar with her still. So it was really cool to see her as kind of the main love interest and a spy for Wakanda, which I thought was really cool to see, that kind of that strong female character. There's a lot of really strong female characters, and I love it because there's a good kaleidoscope of them. Yeah. You know what I mean? That there are intelligent women, there are powerful women, and everything in between. It's got this really great supporting cast, and of these three women mainly that help him. Shuri, his sister, who is kind of like his Q. She is the head of the technology.
That's fun.
Yeah, she's a lot of fun. I like a lot of her jokes. There's some stuff that I wasn't huge on, but I think it was very Marvel-y. You know what I mean? I think we kind of know what to expect from these movies at this point. But I really liked kind of that character's humor and everything that was kind of going on with those three specifically.
Well, Michael B. Jordan, too, let's not forget. I think he did a fantastic job. Not only his performance was awesome, but the written character was very well done. One of the more relatable, one of the better villains in the MCU for sure. And just Michael B. Jordan bringing that character and fully realizing it, and he brought a lot of heart to it, and I thought that him and Black Panther going up against each other, it wasn't just the opposites going at it. It truly had some nuance in there, and it was very well done.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's it is. It's funny because I think that this movie does a lot of things that we kind of knew it was going to do, but the context with which they happen is different, and the circumstances for the characters is different. I think especially when we look at the relationship that forms, and no, it's a weird way, but saying the relationship that forms between Black Panther and Eric Killmonger, their rivalry, what they are fighting over is so interesting because of the way that Black Panther thinks about it and the way that Eric thinks about it.
Yeah.
And it's I think in that way it's such a original thing that happens here, and especially with its resolution. It's so, I think that it is kind of wrapped in very familiar packaging, but the contents of it are much richer than I think that we are kind of used to from that kind of film. So I think that that's the one thing with this this one is that it's a Marvel movie. We know what that means. Yep. We know what to expect. But I think that is kind of the element that this has. It's those really subtle things and like the change of just kind of the context of some of these situations. I think that it breathes a different life into that same kind of thing that maybe we've kind of seen things like it, and you could nitpick and say that, oh, it's just the same as this. But I think that's very surface level to say that. Yeah. I think you're really not quite paying attention to everything that Ryan Coogler is putting in this film. And I think it's got one of the most subtle scripts, and the subtext and the themes in it are interwoven, I think, better than not just a lot of MCU films, but a lot of films in general. Like, how do you make an action movie have real purpose and real meaning? And I think that Ryan Coogler's screenplay here is the exact perfect example of that. So,
yeah, this is an origin story as well. I mean, not necessarily origin; it's a first outing. I know we talked about that a little bit because we've already seen Black Panther established initially already. Like Spider-Man: Homecoming was the first outing, not actually origin story. But I think this is one of the best first films for a character in the MCU, if not the best. I think it's my favorite so far, even over Iron Man, Thor. The first Thor I really enjoyed as well, but I think it definitely, just the themes alone, just that nuance in the script writing, I think definitely puts it aside. But the thing that blew me away about this movie is just it's visually such a treat. Yeah. But it's every layer, it's every facet of the filmmaking process. I think seeing Wakanda, like when you first fly into Wakanda, I think it's gorgeous. It's fully realized. There's so much creativity just bubbling. Everything that Vibranium can do in their culture, all the technology that's created from it, I think it's just so unique. And it brings in this like fantasy element, this kind of like a lot of fantasy elements, like Thor did. When you got to see what it's like to be on that planet. Wakanda is kind of like this hidden El Dorado, as they say, and it's really cool being able to see that type of creativity come through.
The thing with that I think is interesting is that I haven't heard the comparison yet, but I'm like waiting for it, I'm bracing for it, because it's very similar, I think, to how Themyscira was kind of in Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And there's and it's funny because I'm not going to try to directly compare them, but I think that like they definitely are, there are superhero movies that are representing demographics that typically don't get represented. And I think that in a lot of ways they're kind of trying to do similar work. And it's funny because like looking at it, I'm just like, I never realized how close in some ways Black Panther was to Wonder Woman. And like watching this after seeing that last year, I'm like, there are these kind of similarities that we see there. And I think though that I think still here, I think that Ryan Coogler does a better job. I think
so. I think so too, actually. But even just that, I think this is one of the few Marvel movies where the stakes actually feel pretty legitimate. The character isn't just invincible. And I've seen some critiques and complaints in those regards, revolving around him being kind of unbeatable or his suit's too powerful, that type of stuff. And I really don't agree with that, because this is kind of one of the first Marvel movies we've gotten where the hero is... he's got stuff. He's really backed up against a wall.
He's very vulnerable in this movie.
And no spoilers. We're not doing any spoilers here. So yeah, we can't really talk about that too much.
Not in detail.
Not in detail, yeah. But some of the stuff is really like, whoa. I mean, they're really put a lot of effort into the screenplay and the story, and it's really well done.
And a lot of that stuff too. It's funny because it's like that's straight out of the comics. Some of it. I think they just did a great job of like finding the spots to make him vulnerable in the right places and everything like that. I think that it depends on what is happening. Like when he's facing off against someone like Killmonger, the stakes feel high. Like when he's taking out just random arms dealers fully geared up, like I don't know. I kind of always get the impression that that's what we want from those scenes. I think as a superhero fan, that's kind of what I want from those scenes, is him beating up the bad guys. Yeah. I want to see him swoop in like Batman, and we get to see how powerful this person is. I think you have to have some of those kind of scenes and things like that. But I think that the stakes, it's because the stakes are farther reaching than physical danger. Like there's the social stakes of what's going on, like the fact that he is trying to rule an entire country, that all these people's lives hang in the balance, if not also the lives of everyone in the world. Not to go too deep into what exactly is going to happen in the plot, but it is one of those things where I think that the stakes are well high enough that it doesn't necessarily, a win or a loss doesn't necessarily have to be him physically being beaten. And he could have easily lost everything in this film, even if, say, like, you know, you could sit there and try to be like, oh, his suit's pretty OP, you know. But it's a really awesome, cool suit.
And going with that, too, I don't think anything that they included in the movie with his suit is anything different from the comics. I believe there are pretty recent comics that have the exact same thing. So you're just complaining about the comic, not the movie, so it's an invalid critique, in my opinion. I thought it was pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, I really like his suit. I really like the thing that they added to it. Some of the little extra bells and whistles now with it.
And not only that, but I mean, we're talking about the richest, or potentially the richest person.
Yeah, he makes Tony Stark look like, you know, he has modest means. Like,
yeah.
It's true though. Like, it's he has got like so much technology at his disposal. And of course, with his sister Shuri, who is a genius, like putting this stuff together, like he's got some really cool tech, and I'm totally fine with that. Like, I think the Black Panther suit is pretty great. I liked it. I loved it in Civil War, and seeing kind of that same suit for a full feature film definitely didn't bother me any. And I think that it's, you know, like with superheroes, like they're all kind of super powered, aren't they? It's kind of what makes them superheroes. But yeah, that's definitely a critique I keep hearing as well. But as far as, you know, it goes, what were some of the things as far as negatives for you in Black Panther?
To be totally honest, I don't have too many negatives, too many critiques of this film. I think it's actually a pretty standout feature in the MCU lineup. But, you know, some of the things to pick apart, it's definitely an MCU film, you can tell. If you have complaints about that brand and kind of that, how they do their movies, their 3-act structure, it's very similar in those ways. Obviously, with that comes some of the forced humor. A lot of the jokes in this movie did not bother me whatsoever. I was actually a big fan of Thor Ragnarok as well, so that's kind of where I lean already. But I thought like a lot of the jokes landed, but there is some humor where it's like, you know, you could have left that out, and you're gonna get that. These movies are meant to appeal to all ages, so it's really what, like, those critiques to me kind of feel in some ways voided. A lot of people come out and they give those critiques, but it's like, man, I mean, like, this movie's made for an 8-year-old and, you know, the 40-year-old dude who read the comics. Yeah. It's made for both. So you're going to have both of those things in. You know, other than that, you know, I would say another critique of the film is there's a lot of stuff that they have to establish early on in the film. The editing is actually pretty darn good in the movie, but I would say that it takes some time to kind of get moving into the story. I wasn't really taken out by it because it was so pretty to look at all the different settings and new things that we were seeing. But I think they could have made it maybe a little bit tighter. Yeah, it did feel like it took a little bit to get it chugging. You know, we try to go over the things that we didn't see in Civil War, trying to give you the origin so you understand what the Black Panther is, what that means, where that comes from, what exactly are his powers, and where that starts. So I think that it's one of those things that it depends. I think sometimes how much of a fan are you of superheroes, man? Like, that's kind of what I want to ask a little bit, because like for me, I always loved that. Like, I love, like, how did they become this thing? And, like, I love the lore, okay? Like, I'm such a lore nerd about, like, the things that I like. So I love all that info. Like, so for me, I'm totally fine with that. And I thought they actually did a really good job of, like, making it make sense. How can we go back and show people this stuff? Give these people this information while still actually making the story move forward. And I thought that was honestly some really, really good work with that. To like I said, to feel like we're not going backwards, we're still going forwards, but now you understand everything that happened before. And I think that, Ryan Coogler's screenplay here is just top notch. I really am impressed by like what is on the page in this like movie, and the way that they figured out ways to make this not seem boring and not feel just like a big dump. But I do think that it did take a little bit to get going, but as he said, I was still totally engaged with all this stuff. It's like, this is all stuff I want to know. And, like, that's all stuff I want to see. So you're just kind of happy still. I don't know. It definitely didn't bother me too much. I didn't mention it in my positives either, but I just came to me and I'm like, I have to share this, because I think this movie has the best music in the MCU thus far.
Yeah. It has a lot more personality than a lot of the other ones.
Yeah, a lot of personality. You got some of, you get that tribal drumming. It just every time it came on in like the battle scenes and like just the fight scenes, like it just keeps you going,
Yeah.
Like I was just rocking and tapping my foot the whole time, just really engaged with it. But it was very creative.
I would definitely say like one of the few negatives for me is that I wasn't completely blown away by too many of the fight sequences, especially coming from someone like Ryan Coogler. After seeing Creed, I was a little disappointed. I just wish that we had gotten a set piece like some of the set pieces we got in Creed. Just a little bit, like some of those one-shot takes, see some real choreography. We know that, especially that Michael B. Jordan can do it. So I would have liked to see a little bit more of that, but overall, I was really actually quite happy with it, especially when it came to Okoye. I think they gave her some great choreography, some great fight scenes, but I felt like it was kind of a mixed bag, where I thought that we got like some really great choreographed stuff, and then some stuff that is kind of what we expect from Marvel action, where it's very, there's a lot of cuts, and you can definitely tell when the stunt guy jumps in real quick to do something cool. But I think that that overall though it was pretty good. I thought that the fights were standard to above average in general. So the action didn't blow me away, but for me this movie's more about the characters. But as far as the action though, like Okoye, I'll watch her all day. She's awesome. But for me, there's a couple characters I felt like I really had wanted to see more of. I'm not going to tell you who because it's spoilers, but I think that there was a couple characters I feel like I just wanted some more from them, and maybe not just just the good guys. I think we could have filled out a little bit more of some of the villains, but obviously Eric Killmonger is pretty great. And then too, I thought they did a great. On the flip side of that, though, there's some characters they give great purpose to. That I think that some movies would have been able to, what do we do with this guy while this was going on? Yeah. I thought that they found some really great things for all the heroes and stuff to do, and to be involved in the story in ways that made sense. There was a couple, I think, on the more the villain side that I would have liked a little more development outside of Eric Killmonger. I'm not going to say anything negative about that, because that is a great villain. So, it's some of his, the people around him, I would have liked to see a little bit more.
We didn't even mention it before, but like Martin Freeman as well is in this film. And he's great as well in this
Martin
movie.
Freeman's great in everything. You guys know that. It was kind of one of those things where like I'd watch him and I just reaffirming that, yes, you're one of the best guys working right now. That's true, isn't it? Well, and the thing is what always impresses me with him, and especially something like this and Civil War, just talking about the character of Everett Ross, is that he doesn't really have that much to work with. Not that much, anyway. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not... the movie's called Black Panther. It ain't called Everett Ross. So, the screen time that he has, though, he breathes so much life in this character that you sit there and you go, like, who is Everett Ross? I want to know more about this guy. I want to see more of this guy. I want to see where this character keeps going and growing and becoming in the MCU. I think you mentioned it right away yesterday, was kind of comparing him like he could be cooler Coulson.
Yeah, he's kind of like a replacement. Yeah.
I think he's cooler, especially after this movie. Actually, I think he's much cooler. It was cool to see some more from Martin Freeman.
And like Daniel Kaluuya's even in this film.
I think it's Kaluuya. I was having this conversation in the car with my family the other day because everyone says it like Kahlua, and I'm just like, he's not a drink that either 14-year-olds or 40-year-olds drink. I think it's Kaluuya.
Hey, White Russians are very good.
White Russians are very good. Yeah, it was cool seeing him. It was cool because he's a leader of one of the many tribes of Wakanda, which I love that structure to it a little bit. It's very Game of Thronesy. You know what I mean? We've got these different tribes and stuff, and they're like, we do not sow, and you know what I mean? And the Lannister always pays his debts. Just kidding, they don't say any of that stuff. But no, it kind of had that where you have this court intrigue stuff. You have these different clans and tribes and stuff, and their history. It's like you kind of really want to go like, whoa, hey, what's all this about? And I think that they did a good job too with the costuming, so you could really tell between the different tribes and kind of what they were all about and everything. So that was definitely the cool little details of Wakanda as well. But yeah, I think with him, I would have liked to maybe have a little bit more. But he has some great powerful scenes.
Maybe we'll get more in a Black Panther sequel.
Yeah, All right. So in general, we've gone through all of our positives, some of the negatives that we had. John, what is your summary and final grade for Black Panther?
I was really excited for Black Panther. I'm always excited for the next MCU film. I didn't know how excited I was for this film, though, which was kind of one of those things going into it. But I was so pleased to sit down on opening night and just marvel at what Marvel.
I see what you did there.
I didn't intend to, but no. This movie, just like I said before, it bubbles with so much creativity. I think just everything from the top down. The cinematography, I think, was excellent. The music is a standout for an MCU film. Just the supporting cast, just like everybody. Hey, Andy Serkis, we didn't mention him before either. Andy Serkis is also in this film,
and he's having so much fun.
He is having a lot of fun. It's great. It just, the whole supporting cast is so good. All the acting is done really well. But like Ryan Coogler as a director, he really brought this movie to life, and with his screenplay and with his direction. And the screenplay has a lot of nuance. It's one of the best screenplays, I think, in the MCU for sure. It's just flat out one of the best movies that they have made. Yeah. Besides some of the flaws that I mentioned before, I give this movie an A.
Well, guys, you know me. I would have voted for Obama a third time if I could. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, though, Black Panther was a great Marvel film. I had so much fun seeing this in the theater. Though it structurally has a lot of similarities to a lot of the Marvel films we had, as I said before, the context, the themes, everything that's going on with the characters in this is what makes it different and makes it special. Now, you could definitely make the argument that, yes, there's been movies that have come before in this same vein, but I don't think that they've done it this well. It blows things like Doctor Strange out of the water for me. Now, going off of that as well, though, this is a great ode to African American and African culture, showing this really interesting style of like Afrofuturism that I don't think we see in very many films, and it gives it this really unique, like, just kind of visual tone that it's like we just never see this kind of the culture represented that way, and seeing what African culture could be like at its zenith is such an interesting, great thing. We see so many cultures like the Romans or even America. You know, we go back to Old West and we glorify it in these like crazy ways, and we've never really seen that happen with African culture. Like, let's put this at this great peak and see what that could be like. And I think that Wakanda is this just amazing, beautiful thing that was so great to see come to the big screen. Overall, though, the supporting cast in this is great. I think in some ways does overshadow its hero just a little bit. But overall, a really, really enjoyable MCU flick. And one of the best, like, just origin stories or first movie out, wherever you want to put it. It is a great superhero flick. And I really hope that a lot of black children can grow up with this representation of themselves on the screen. And I think that Ryan Coogler's very subtle, well-woven screenplay has a lot of things to say to those people and to all of us about African American culture. So guys, if you haven't seen this one already, go out and see Black Panther. If you don't, you're probably a racist. I'm just kidding. That's what the internet will tell you. Tell me in the comments, guys, if you've already seen it, what you thought of it. And you can find us on our Twitter at BacktoFeature. And you can find us as well on our Facebook at /BacktoFeature. I've been Giovanni Carlo.
And I'm John Vanderloo.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Let's have some fun.